Welcome back to the Language of Abundance, part 3 of 3. 6 magic phrases for empowered communication with others. Welcome back. This is the third in the series that began with talking about the power of language in abundance and moved on to, in the second video, we talked about ways that we get disempowered and how to turn it around with language. And then finally, I'm going to share with you some magic phrases that I've discovered over the years that often work in sticky situations. Now, I do want to say that this particular video is somewhat inspired by my friend, Phil M. Jones, who wrote the book, Exactly What to Say, Magic Words for Influence and Impact. Now, Phil will be coming on my channel soon. We just set a film date, and I'm really excited to interview him, and he's going to interview me, and we're going to have conversations together. But these words that I'm going to share with you are my magic phrases that I've discovered over the years. So even though I'm inspired by his work, these particular phrases are not from his book, although I highly, highly recommend checking out his book and his work. He's a genius. Here are my 6 magic phrases. The first one I use in situations where I want to enroll somebody in taking a step. And so whether that's because I'm reaching out to somebody to see if they want to have a conversation about working with me, or I want to maybe have somebody promote a book that I'm launching or anything like that, I use the phrase, "Are you open to a conversation?" I use this also with clients when they're having a difficult time, if there's some, anger or stuff going on. Are you open to a conversation? Or just plain, are you open? What I found is that using the phrase, are you open, gives people room to choose. And sometimes that's enough. People could be pressured if you say, do you want to have a conversation with me? Let's have a conversation. Or how about next Tuesday for that conversation? That can all feel pushy. But if you say, are you open to a conversation? Most people like to think of themselves as open. And so it's an easy thing to say yes to. Yeah, I'm open to a conversation. So it's an easy way to kind of get your foot in the door without pressuring someone or being pushy. The second is the sticky situation of when you're in a situation where somebody is projecting onto you. So what I mean by projecting onto you is when they're blaming you for how they feel or something that they're getting triggered by based on something you've done. Now, it's sometimes you could have done better. And it's important to acknowledge that. Like, if you communicated poorly or if you were angry or, you did something, it's definitely important to recognize that. And what I found that works really well, the magic phrase is, I'm so sorry you feel that way. And to mean it, not to say, I'm so sorry you feel that way, sarcastically. If you know me, then you know I'm not a fan of sarcasm in general. I think it's lazy and passive-aggressive. But aside from that, I feel like when you say it authentically, honestly, truthfully, from the heart, I'm really sorry, I'm so sorry you feel that way, then basically you're giving them back their power. That you're doing 2 things. Number 1, you're giving them back their power. You're not taking on the blame for their feelings. You're not saying, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. That's a no-no. I'm so sorry you feel that way acknowledges their feelings, but it does not take on the responsibility for how they feel. So that's a way of maintaining some separation, which is empowering for you, and believe it or not, it's empowering for them. When people say, you made me feel a certain way, or you did this to me, it's a very disempowering dynamic. It's part of the drama triangle. By the way, you might want to check out my videos about the drama triangle and the victim triangle, because those are really good when you're dealing with situations where people are blaming you for something, or you have become the villain, or you're expected to be the hero. The third sticky situation is when somebody is trying to get you to do something or trying to get you to solve their problem for them instead of being empowered in the face of their own situation. So what I like to ask people, my old phrase has always been, how can I support you? Which puts me in the role sometimes of hero. Like, how can I save you? How can I fix this for you? And what I've started to take on recently, and I'm still working on this, is what kind of support are you looking for? What kind of support are you looking for? Similar to the last one, it creates a bit of separation. So basically, you're giving that person the sovereignty of deciding what they want, what they're asking for, And you've given yourself the sovereignty of being able to say yes or no in the face of that need of that request. So it ultimately empowers both of you. It gives them choice to request what they're looking for, to articulate it, and it gives you the power to say yes or no. Like, yes, I'm willing to provide that for you, or you know what, I think that a better way to approach it would be to go find it here or there. I recommend this thing or another. So what kind of support are you looking for is a way to create more empowerment in the person and also to create more sovereignty with your own decision of whether to jump in or not jump in. The fourth magic phrase is when you are dealing with passive aggression or sarcasm. So I face this one a lot. I have an issue with sarcasm in general, so I know I'm working through my own stuff, but I generally try to immediately, I get very triggered by it, so I go to aggressive mode, or I go to the opposite of aggressive mode. I try to get out of the situation and escape. Sarcasm has always been a very difficult thing for me to deal with. And sarcasm, when you look at it, essentially is passive-aggressive behavior. Sarcasm is usually when someone is feeling angry, but they feel like they can't express that anger, and so they do so in a passive sort of way. My favorite example of passive aggression, I used it in one of my presentations, was a little girl who got angry at her parents and basically drew a beautiful picture with flowers all over it, letting her parents know, please don't ever do that to me again, with all these beautiful flowers around it. It was like this lovely portrait, and inside the message was, you made me mad, you know, don't do that again, mom and dad. So that's an example of passive aggressive, is when you wrap up something angry or aggressive inside a pretty package. So the way to deal with passive aggressive, my opinion, is to ask them to clarify further. So instead of reacting or responding or trying to justify, instead asking them to clarify further. So, did you mean to say that? That's one way to do it. Or even better is, what did you mean by that? Or why do you think that's true? Or why do you think that? This is something, actually, I want to give credit where it's due. My client, Marianne Dersh, this is one of her lines. What makes you say that? So basically, it gives a moment to pause. It gives the other person a moment to collect themselves and say, all right, we're here. We're going to talk about this. So let me see if I want to re-articulate that and do that in a different way. You give people basically a do-over, and you give them a little bit of grace, essentially. And most of the time, people will catch themselves and they'll come back to greater desire for connection rather than going even more aggressive. Now, before I get to the final two magic phrases, I do want to invite you to take an opportunity to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear from you, and maybe you have some magic phrases that you want to share below in the comments. The fifth thing to use is a technique for gaining agreement. Now, I use this when I'm speaking in front of an audience and I want to enroll the audience in being on the journey with me. I want to enroll them in participating. So what I do is, from very early on in the presentation, I gain agreement along the way. Now, I ask questions for which the answer is usually yes. And I do that to create more rapport and to just keep them engaged. So for example, I'll use this phrase a lot. Does this make sense? Is this making sense to you? Could you see yourself applying this? Could you see yourself being in a situation like this? Is this resonating with you? Basically questions to which the only answer is yes. And that way, I'm just creating greater rapport, and we're going on this journey together instead of me talking at a group of people for 90 minutes. I do this to you guys all the time. Is this resonating with you? Have you ever noticed me doing this? And then the final question, it's not a sticky situation, but the final phrase is when you're helping somebody develop a vision or come up with an idea. I like to use the term, instead of like, what do you want to do, or what strategy do you want to implement, or what's your goal? I like to elevate it to a more playful tone to help people tap into their higher self. And so the phrase I use is, wouldn't it be fun if? And by the way, I want to give credit for this one too. I got this from a client, Debbie Peterson. She's a women's leadership and empowerment speaker, mentor, trainer, all the things. And she came up with this once, wouldn't it be fun if, or wouldn't it be cool if? So basically what that phrase does is it elevates you to thinking about what would be fun, what would be cool. A lot of times people, when they're planning their businesses, they get into this like mindset of strategy and figuring it out, and it has to be hard. And that kind of depresses the energy around the thing being created. And so the phrase, wouldn't it be fun if, or wouldn't it be cool if, elevates them back up into, maybe that would be fun. Maybe that would be cool. What would be fun? What would I enjoy? And it brings you back to a place of visioning from a higher state of consciousness. I hope these magic phrases were exciting for you and that you can see yourself using them at some point in the future. If you want to learn more about what it looks like to work together and have me help you with your business, let's connect. You can find out more at superstarbusinessbreakthrough.com.